This is a full guide to swimming butterfly. So, my promise, I'll teach you the 6 key fundamentals of butterfly that I wish I knew when I first learned the stroke. Knowing these would have had such a genuine difference to how I treated butterfly, so loving it instead of hating it. And I'll tell you guys a quick story. So back when I was swimming competitively, I absolutely detested butterfly. I hated it, and that was just because I didn't understand how the technique worked, which is why I found it so hard. It even got to the point where I started to fake cramps and pretend I had to vomit just so I could skip out on a couple of 50s, and that's no way to swim, and I wasn't really fooling anyone. And now in hindsight, looking back, if I'd just taken the time to really understand what makes good butterfly technique, I would have been not only a better butterflyer, but also a much better swimmer. So, quick introduction, my name is Lachlan and I swam competitively throughout high school before retiring in 2018. Since then, I've been a coach for about 3 years' time, and subscribe for more guides. So on the left over here with me at one of my first carnivals for the Sydney Olympic Park Aquatic Centre. Don't remember how I went, but I'm sure I did great. And over here with me in my coaching uniform. So it's all come full circle, just really satisfying to see. So how this guide is going to work, I'm going to start off with the timing. I'll give you guys a holistic view as to how butterflies swam and the specific timing of the stroke, which is really important, probably the most important part of it. We'll then go into the specifics that are really worth knowing. So the kick, head position, pull, recovery, and then finally, hand entry. So butterfly timing. So timing is the most important part of your butterfly. So you could have the best technique in the world, like Caleb Dressel over here, but if your timing is off, then you can forget about swimming a fast and efficient butterfly stroke. So for the timing, there should be 2 kicks per butterfly cycle. So you're going to take your first kick as your hands enter the water, and the second as your hands exit the water, right after you've completed your pull. Make sure that you lift your head before the hands exit the water to get a nice early breath, and make sure your head is down before your hands re-enter the water. I'll explain why this is important shortly, but just trust me. So as you begin your recovery, which is when your hands are above water, your head should already be moving down. And make sure when you do this, you drive forwards with the chest as the head goes down and as your hands re-enter. This is definitely going to help you carry your momentum forwards. This is a video of Olympic champion Stephanie Rice swimming butterfly. Notice that she takes her first kick as her hands enter the water and her second as the hands exit. As she takes a breath, her head rises before her hands exit and her head re-enters before her hands enter as well. She also drives forward powerfully with her chest. So, there are 2 really common issues I see in butterfly. The first is when you start your second kick too early. So like I mentioned before, there are 2 kicks in your butterfly. The first is when your hands enter the water, and the second is after you've completed your pull. As your hands are about to exit, that's when you kick. So if we look at the swimmer on the left over here, they're starting their second kick right in the middle of their pull, and that's not good because they're not going to be maximizing their propulsion. So most of the force is going to be exerted at the end of the pull, and that's when you want to combine both your kick and your pull. This is going to greatly assist with your recovery. So a second issue is having your head up too long for the breath. So having your head up way too long is going to greatly increase the amount of drag. So there's a big chain reaction that happens here. So if your head is up, that means your shoulders are up above water as well, which means your body is going to be in this downwards diagonal shape, and your hips and legs are going to be low in the water, creating more drag. So you definitely don't want that. So like I mentioned before, the breath should be quick and sharp. Your head should be down before your hands enter the water. Moving on to the butterfly kick. So unlike freestyle and backstroke, butterfly uses a dolphin kick, like I explained a bit earlier. And there are 2 kicks for every butterfly cycle, and your kick actually starts from the chest, not from the hips, which is what a lot of people believe. So it starts from the chest and then moves down through the hips, knees, and ankles. So it's really a whole body movement. But whenever I say this, a lot of people tend to just over-exaggerate this movement, and they end up looking like a slinky in water. And that's not what you want. You want to be relatively streamlined as well, because remember, drag is the enemy, and if you're going all over the place up and down, you're going to be creating large amounts of drag with minimal propulsion. So try and stay relatively streamlined with your kick. This is underwater footage of the men's 100 meter butterfly final at the Rio Olympics. Notice the undulation of the body and how it begins from the chest. Also take note of the timing with 2 kicks per stroke cycle. So, both kicks need to be equal in power and size. So I used to really believe that your second kick should be more powerful than your first kick, but I guess after some consideration, I now believe that both kicks should be equal in power and size. There's no point holding back on that first kick. Make sure your second kick is nice and powerful. So the first kick begins at the start of the pool, and the second is right at the end of the pool, just as your hands are about to exit the water. So when you kick, the heels and soles of your feet should break the surface of the water, meaning your feet need to come above water with your knees bent on the upbeat when your legs are going up. Alright? Also, always make sure to be flexing your ankles. The more flexible your ankles, the more powerful your kick is going to be. And this is true throughout every single stroke. Ankle flexibility is so important. I really can't stress this enough. Really work on your ankle flexibility. Because what happens is, if you're not flexible in the ankles, you're going to need to overcompensate by bending your knees more. And the golden angle for a knee bend is 60 degrees, and the people with the best ankle flexibilities achieve this effortlessly because they don't need to bend their knees much more than that. So if your ankles aren't as flexible, you're going to be bending your knees a bit more just to get the same amount of power, which is also going to increase the amount of drag. So it's really not worth it. Really focus on having more flexible ankles. Moving on to head position. So how should your head move when you're swimming butterfly? And there are 2 common options. The first is to have your head tight to minimize movement, so any unnecessary movements like this, moving it up and down. Or the second is to have your head relaxed and let it undulate up and down. And in my opinion, the second option is definitely much better, and I'll explain why. So, as we all know, drag is a detriment to your swimming, and one of the biggest reasons for drag in butterfly is when your shoulders come way too high up above the water, which causes your hips and legs to sink, thus creating more drag. And actually, this occurs when you swim with a tighter neck because since your head is not moving, you're going to have to rely on your shoulders to lift your head up for a nice breath. But as you know, lifting the shoulders up, hips sink down. You're going to rely on your shoulders to lift your head up to get a breath. Don't do that. Instead, what I really prefer is to have more neck movement where you move your head up and down a bit more. However, this is going to require more range of motion of the neck. So how this works is that when you take a breath, make sure to really extend the neck as far forward and as quickly as possible. So what that looks like is that when you come up from your breath, head goes forwards, then back down. That might have looked a bit weird, but you get the idea. So instead of having your head be nice and neutral like this, have a bit more movement, snap your head forwards, and then back and down. This prevents you from having to really use your shoulders to lift yourself up above the water. It's also less tiring as well. But equally as important, when you're coming down from your breath, make sure you drive your head down until your chin is almost touching your chest. This last part is especially important because this is going to generate some extra downwards momentum, which is going to help with your kick. So we're now going to move on to the butterfly pull. And if you didn't know already, the butterfly pull is whatever your hands do underwater. And this is where the majority of your propulsion is going to come from in butterfly. So it's really important that we understand this. So, on the right over here, we have Sarah Sjöström, arguably the best female butterflyer in history. So, as soon as your hands enter the water, your elbows should bend down and your pull should begin, just like Sarah's doing over here. So, if I was to demonstrate, as soon as your hands enter the water, fully extended, begin to bend your elbows down and grab the water with your wrists. Don't wait until your hands are by your head or by your side to bend your elbows properly, because by then it's way too late and you really want to maximize the amount of water you're going to want to push back. So the earlier we do this elbow bend, the better. And when's the best time to do it? As soon as your hands enter the water, just like Sarah is showing over here. So let me smooth my camera real quick. Cool. So once the elbows are bent, you're going to want to use your wrists to drive the water backwards all the way to your thigh. Really push yourself forwards. Have that visualization in your head. So some people argue that you need to make an hourglass shape or just drive your hands back. But in my opinion, I don't really see much of a difference. Do whatever is more comfortable to you. So me personally, I know that I like to make an S shape, just like the swimmer on the bottom over here, whereas some swimmers usually just like to push all the way down. Whatever is more comfortable for you, as long as you're driving back with the wrists, and we start an early elbow bend. Alright, let me move my camera again. So there are two really common issues in the butterfly pool. Don't push downwards. This is going to cause your chest and shoulders to rise and create more drag. I've explained this earlier, but I'll just briefly elaborate. If you push yourself downwards, chest and shoulders will rise up, which means hips and legs will sink, creating way more resistance and drag. We don't want that. You're going to be going slow. A second issue is when you have a wide sweep. So don't do this. This is going to dissipate the force you create sideways instead of forwards. So in your butterfly pull, don't push outwards. You should be pushing straight backwards with your wrists. All your energy should be directed at going forwards, and that's what you want to be doing. So don't do what the swimmer on the right over here is doing. They're actually pushing sideways. It's hard to see, but that's what they're doing. So they're not going to be maximizing the amount of force that's propelling them forwards. So let's move on to the butterfly recovery now. So this occurs after you've completed your second kick and after you've done your pull. So at this point, your arms should be above water. So butterfly recovery is really simple. Just keep the arms as relaxed as possible. That's the best tip I can give you guys. If you look at all professional butterflies, they're not straining their arms during their recovery because there's no point. All of your propulsion is going to come from your pull and your kick. There's no point really rushing your recovery or having tight arms or having bent arms. Keep them straight and relaxed because butterfly is a really tiring stroke. I don't know if you've tried to swim it before. I have. I hated it. I realized the importance of having a really smooth and efficient recovery. Just makes it so much easier. Don't strain. But there are some specifics I can also get into. Just make sure that your hands are in line with your elbows, should be nice and straight. And also be sure to have your hands enter in line with your shoulders. There is an exception to this though. So some people have really flexible shoulders and they can afford to have their hands go higher than their elbows. And with this, one of the benefits is that you can actually use gravity to help you generate more momentum as your hands finish their recovery and your pull starts again. So some people are hyper flexible, they can do that, it works really well for them. But for most people who don't have hyper flexible shoulders, just keep your hands in line with your elbows. And Michael Phelps is a great example of this. So this is footage of Michael Phelps swimming butterfly. Just look at how relaxed he looks above the water, hands in line with the elbows. His chin is also nice and low. All of the hard work is happening underneath the water with his pull and his kick. So we're going to finish off this butterfly guide with hand entry, and this is going to be a really short section. So there's usually a debate between having a wide versus narrow entry and which is better. And in my opinion, having a wider entry with your hands in line with your shoulders is so much better. I'll explain why. First, it's going to shorten the travel time of the arms, which means you can have a higher stroke rate. And secondly, it also removes the need to do an out sweep before you start your pull if you were to do a narrow entry with your hands inside your shoulders. So if you think about it, if you were to do a narrow entry, hands entering right here, you have to go outwards and then begin your pull. Whereas if you were to just do a normal wide entry, you just enter, bend your elbow, go straight into it. It's so much more efficient in my opinion. But when you do this, make sure your palms are downwards facing and your thumb enters the water first. This is just the most efficient way. Everyone does this. And from here, you can then begin your cycle again, going from your pull, your kicks, your breath, your recovery, and then your hand entry, guys. And there you have it. That's a guide to butterfly. Hope you found the video useful. I also have a no bullshit guide to swimming butterfly. So if you'd like to continue learning a bit more, feel free to watch that. I'll link it in the description below. And if you got it this far, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It means the world to me. Have a great day.